It's time for us to take our book chat, and our book is titled Oma's Sea. Now, it's inspired by true events and highlights the trials and temptations that couples dealing with infertility struggle with. And joining us for this conversation is the amazing, inspiring Loretta Olubunmi Amosu. Welcome to the show.
Thank you, Titi. I'm so happy to be here.
Thank you for sharing your story.
Thank you.
Now, I have to ask, did you ever think you were going to write a book?
Yes, I think I knew from the third or the fourth year of my wait that I was definitely going to have to write something.
Okay, so now that we've gone into the length of waiting, your waiting time, you're waiting on God for a child for how long?
8 years, 3 months, 2 weeks.
8 years, 3 months, and 2 weeks?
Yep.
Wow, what a journey.
Yeah, it was a journey.
So now I've flipped through, I haven't gone through all of it, but the amount of emotion and the rawness that you've poured into this is admirable. Thank you so much for sharing that story.
Thank you.
Now, from the first part I'm seeing here, that conversation on what the cause of the delay was, how were you able to deal with that question? What is the cause of this delay?
To be honest, I think I asked that question even up to the 8th year of waiting because I wasn't sure. So a lot of people ask, is the delay from God? You read Bible stories about how God opened somebody's womb and all of that. And other people want to know if it's a gynecological issue or if it's a spiritual issue. So I really wasn't sure of what it was until it happened. Okay. Yeah, and even beyond that, you would also wonder, okay, at what point do you mix the Christian part, being a Christian, having faith in God, and then going to see a doctor? And then some people would feel like you going to see a doctor was you undermining God's ability to do this the natural way. So these conversations actually, or these questions keep occurring in your head until you actually hold a miracle many times. I've heard of a few people who knew, but not everybody knows where the delay is from.
Wow. Okay, so now you went to see a doctor how soon after you got married?
A year after we got married, because I got married in my late 20s. Okay. And then the doctors would usually advise you that if you have waited a year without anything happening, or if you're 30 and above and within 6 months nothing is happening, you should see a doctor immediately. Okay. So for us, it was a year after.
But did you have any inkling? Did you have any suspicions before then?
Absolutely none. Okay. The only thing I knew I experienced was the heavy periods, because I'd always had very heavy and painful periods since I was a teenager. Okay. But in terms of it leading to infertility or anything like that, nothing.
Okay, so now obviously when you went to the doctor had a lot of questions to ask.
Oh, yeah.
Now there's a particular paragraph where you break down some of the questions. The first question was, have you ever been pregnant? Are your periods consistent? And the answers to that were?
Never been pregnant. My periods were very consistent.
Are they painful?
Very painful, excruciating.
Then it goes even deeper. How many sanitary towels did you run through?
You would have to tell them the number of packs you use per cycle.
Wow. STDs? None, obviously.
Of course.
And any previous surgeries? Have you ever... Do you smoke? Do you take alcohol? All those questions.
All those questions had to be asked, and you have to answer honestly because you never know where the cause of the problem might lie.
Okay. Yeah. So, you know, there is that conversation online especially where, you know, some people say, oh, is it really the woman's fault? Is it the man's fault? You probably went through that particular phase as well.
Oh, yeah.
So how were you able to deal with that?
We actually went full cycle because, first off, before it was narrowed down to being the huge part of it being me, there was some query on the motility of the sperm and all of that. And if you read the book, you will see a part where I started questioning why I got married to my husband, and I was very upset with him for certain things, and it really wasn't his fault. And then by the time it now came back and they found out that even post-IVF and all of that, there was no implantation. They were querying the quality of my eggs. They were querying the lining of my womb and everything. It just seemed like all the odds were stacked against me. That was when I realized that I actually had to eat humble pie and chill and just look up to God.
And thank God you did.
Yeah.
So you put together this book after you mentioned 4 years?
Yes, so
4 years?
In the 4th year, I started chronicling everything. I think it was the 3rd year actually, I started keeping journals. So I have like a stack of journals. There are about 6 of them now.
Did it help?
that was what I got. So all of the things you see there that sound like they're factual were actually things I had taken down during the wait because I needed to be very detailed about everything.
So now let's talk about responses to your book. Now, obviously, before you put it out, you must have had some kind of inkling of who you were writing it for. But what is the most interesting thing you've heard in response to you putting this together?
From women who are waiting, who tell me that they literally see themselves living Oma's journey.
Okay.
They can relate with every single step of it. So we have women who've gone for the womb massages, and then with the pain and all, sometimes they feel like they're imagining some of these things. And then women who don't know that there are options or are too ashamed or feel like going with the options that are available medically might not be exhibiting the faith that they claim that they have in God. So it's really mixed emotions. And then we have people who never experienced any of these and come back to tell me, thank you, because now they can relate with some of the things that people around them have been going through, and they feel like it's time for them to be a bit more empathetic towards people who are going through this. So it's sort of like an eye-opener for some, and it's sort of like a relatable thing for the others.
Okay, so now when it comes to getting a book published, you know, there are a lot of things that have to go into it. Now, you decided to use different character names, even though it is indicated here that it's based on true events. Why did you decide to do that?
Okay, so that wasn't me. That was my editor at the time, because when the book was written originally, it was my story, like no holds barred, everything out there. And then I asked myself if I was willing to not just tell my story, but in the process tell other people's stories and put other people out there without seeking their approval. So I had that conversation with my editor, Zazie, and she believed it was best. My husband too believed it was best for us to just rewrite a few things, so we'll leave people wondering what part of this is my story, what part of this is fiction, just to ease the pressure a little bit.
Okay, and it worked?
Oh yes, it worked, because then it made me able to launch and not be afraid that I was putting a lot more out there than I should.
So now, there's a line there that stuck out in the beginning. It says here, guard your heart with all diligence. Can you break that down just a little?
Okay, so anyone who's going through the waiting journey is very gullible and susceptible to interference from outside. Everyone seems to have an opinion. Everyone seems to know the solution to your problem. So you, at that point, need to really guard your heart and ask yourself certain questions and protect your space, your mental space, otherwise you would lose it. For me, it was largely in the word and in prayer, but for some other people, you might need to see a therapist, you might need to speak to someone who's trusted, whatever it takes to just guard your heart so that your mind isn't messed with in the process. You need to do it.
I have to say a big thank you to Loretta Olubunmi Amosu for coming to share, you know, her journey, putting it together, putting this book together. Oma's Seed is our book on Book Chat today, and we would love to hear your comments and contributions on this one. Now, if you are waiting on God, don't worry, He hasn't given up on you. Let's take a quick break and be back with more.